Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to Youth Challenges. For those of you that have just joined us after the break, today's discussion is on social media. In particular, the influence that social media has on youngsters. Today in the studio, I have with me Mr. Abid Rizvi. Abid. So to continue our topic that we were having just before we went on a short break, we discussed a lot about the influence social media has on youngsters. It causes self-doubt. It causes a lack of confidence. It's a distraction from your studies and your work. It can cause communication issues. It can cause issues in your relationship. We also mentioned zina of the eyes, a lot of which is very common and prominent on social media platforms. Now, another thing which is very common, and I've noticed this myself, and if I'm going to be completely transparent, perhaps I've been guilty of it once upon a time when I was a teenager. And what that is you'll post a video or a picture of yourself, and you're constantly checking your phone to see how many likes you have, how many comments you have. And I was never addicted to it, nor did I feel that it validated any sort of feelings I had towards myself. But a lot of youngsters are. And a lot of youngsters get very emotionally upset if they don't reach a certain number of likes or views or comments. So the question I want to ask you, Abid, is what is it, why is it that youngsters feel the need to find validation through likes and comments?
See, we as human beings, we value respect. We want prestige and we want honor, right? It's inbuilt from a very young age until the end of your adult years. Right? Now, the form of seeking that validation and that respect in the digital way is through likes and comments. The more likes you have, the happier you will be, the more dopamine rush you will have, and the more comments you have as well, obviously contribute to that. And obviously, like some of the comments are exaggerated. Even if they're exaggerated, even if they're coming from people that you don't really know that well, or people that love you immensely, right? You'll feel happy, you feel ecstatic. And as a result of that, you're constantly seeking that. So you post one picture, one video, you get the likes, you get the comments, you're happy.
Yeah.
But now, say a month down the line, you post another video or a picture, and you would expect to have more likes and more comments than that because your followers increase over time, assuming. But if you don't reach that, if you don't reach likes or comments higher than the previous picture that you posted, you're going to feel really upset.
That is true, and I think that's a big problem in this day and age. Now, I'm going to ask you a bit of a personal question. Have you ever been guilty of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah, many times.
I value the transparency, because I have too.
Many times.
And one thing I'd like to mention, not without offending anyone, is the fact that some of the comments you may get on social media are not always accurate or true. Because if you post something, and if I look at something, and I know that because you're my friend or you're my family member, whoever it may be, I know that you're expecting me to put a little comment saying, oh, that's nice, or, a little tick or whatever sign, emoji might be there.
Yeah.
I might just put it there just because I know you're expecting it, or just to kind of support whatever you're doing. But the truth of the matter is, that may not always be accurate. For example, you can post something and someone might look at it and think, what is that? Like, why did you post that? Like, brother, what is that? You know what I mean? So but they're going to encourage you anyway. And sometimes I've been on social media and I've seen some very, very harsh comments. And they'll be like, did your friend not tell you that this is a bad idea? And the truth is, a lot of people won't tell you it's a bad idea. You might post a picture of yourself making a particular face or doing or video of doing something silly. And you think, yeah, this is entertainment. But for all you know, someone might look at that and think, oh, what is this person doing? Or have some haya, or whatever it might be. So definitely there is a need to be very honest with one another as well. So I believe if you ever see me post something and you think, well, what is Faizan doing? What is Faizan doing? I'd expect you to say to me, like, I don't really think this is a good idea, or you shouldn't do this. And I think that's lacking in this day and age, especially amongst teenagers. And must I add, especially amongst our sisters. Some sisters will post a picture and you've got hundreds and hundreds of comments at the bottom saying, wow, sis, you look amazing. Or you girl, you're doing amazing. And the video itself might be very, very mediocre, or it might be an act which isn't even within the bounds of what is permissible in Islam. And you'll have people commenting, mashallah, she might not be wearing a hijab, but the comment section running down, mashallah. And it's this sense of negative encouragement or this false encouragement, which is very detrimental, as is the need to see likes and comments to feel validated. So, I mean, we spoke earlier about addiction on social media. Now, everyone has their own image of what an addiction to social media is. For me, it's just the excessive use of social media. It's the fact that you prioritize social media over anything else. And the fact that you can't resist it. It's like a cigarette. You have to have it. And that's what a social media addiction is when I think about it. So the question I want to ask you, Abid, is, even without saying any names, but what are some of the signs that someone is addicted to social media? And I'm sure as soon as I said that, someone must have come to your mind, because that's just how common it is these days.
Sign of social media addiction: constantly scrolling, constantly on the phone, heads down. You know, it doesn't even have to be just the people in my home, but you know, whenever I go on the underground, on the bus, I sometimes take a moment to have a look around to see what people are doing. Around a good 70% of them are on their phones, right? That's when you know they're addicted. And that's a highly negative aspect of human life now, right? So, and that needs to be stopped, obviously.
You mentioned, Abby, that you're not addicted to social media.
No.
And I applaud you for that. But a lot of people are addicted to it. So given the fact that you're not addicted to it, what is your view on it? In particular, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say, for example, a few friends or a few family members, they come together, they're sat in the living room, 6 or 7 boys, and each of them is just glued to their phone. There is no conversation, no interaction. They're just on their phones in their own worlds. And it is shocking how common that is. And I see it all the time. And it upsets me, because even though I'd like to say I still fall under the young category, but even though I am fairly young myself, but I grew up in a time where it wasn't that common. The addiction wasn't that bad. These days, I see teenagers, they'll be sat there in a room full of friends or family, and they're all just on their devices. They're all just on social media. And this is their interaction. Haha, did you see this video? That's their interaction. And it's upsetting. So from your perspective, as someone who is not addicted to social media, what do you think of situations like that?
I find it absurd, to be honest, because I'm going to be real with you. I was, to some extent, addicted to social media, especially during COVID times.
Yeah.
And mainly Instagram is what I was glued to, because what happened was TikTok, you know, it got banned in certain countries, and as a result of that, Instagram decided to have a similar format, the scrolling format. And I got addicted to those reels as well. And then there came a whole phase of becoming a content creator, and that becomes your full-time job, etc. Right? But when I do see people showing each other videos and photos, right, it's just really upsetting. Why don't you communicate it? Instead of showing them, why don't you tell them about it? You know, it will improve your communication skills. It will make you more socially aware of your surroundings, which is the most important thing. And it will, you know, help you cherish relationships, allow you to stay in relationships for a much longer period of time.
Definitely. And I totally agree with you, Abid. And you mentioned there that a lot of people during COVID especially decided they wanted to become social media influencers.
Yeah.
So a bit of a personal question, but did you ever try and become a social media influencer?
No.
Perhaps you posted a few batting videos in the nets.
Well, my account was always private. I was always made aware of the repercussions of having a public account.
Yeah.
You know, you're exposed to the whole world. Hackers, your information is out there. You know, it's not safe.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think another thing which is undervalued or not given as much importance as it should be given is the fact that you can get evil eye. Evil eye is a genuine concept in Islam. We believe in evil eye. We believe in nazar. And it's very possible that if you're showcasting your entire life, your private life, your personal life, someone may come across and you know, it may not even be intentional, but you can be negatively impacted by that. And in fact, a lot of people these days, and these videos in particular, they strike me. They post their babies, young children, on TikTok, and they're very cute videos. And who doesn't like watching, a baby rolling over or falling down, or slapping a cat in the face or whatever it may be? They're entertaining videos. They're fun to watch, but at the same time, you have to think about the fact that you are exposing your personal and private life. You may post your child with the best intention. You may have found a video funny. You may have thought, oh look, my kid done this. That was really cute. Let me post it. Let me share it. And the intention on your part isn't malicious or bad at all. But at the same time, there may be someone flicking through who views that. And it may be someone who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't given them a child yet. Or they're trying, or they're struggling, or whatever it may be. And they can look at that. And even if they feel for a second that perhaps, they might feel in their heart that, I want a child, or, they call it feeling broody, or whatever the term may be. And although it may not be malicious on their part, things like this can cause evil eye, and it can have detrimental impacts. And in fact, our Prophet ﷺ spoke a lot about the impact of evil eye. And there is a hadith in particular, which I won't quote because I'm not 100% sure on the accurate narration of it. However, there was a hadith whereby the Prophet went to a graveyard and he was with some of the Sahaba Ikram, and he said to them that a lot of these graves you see here, a lot of these people, it was evil eye that took them to their grave. So you can only imagine how significant that actually is. Now, moving on, Abid, you mentioned a very good point earlier about a lot of people selling this image of a life that they have. They may not actually have it, they may just be creating an impression. And they may not own that expensive car, they may just rent it. Mm-hmm. Or they may not have financed that holiday themselves. It may have been financed by a wealthy parent, perhaps. And they're on social media posting this as if it's their own accomplishment, which then makes someone of the same age and the same kind of like-for-like person feel like they are not accomplishing enough. And that can then cause self-doubt. Now, what I want to ask you there is, what can youngsters especially do to address this issue of self-doubt that has come about as a result of social media?
To be real with you, social media is a great place for gaining motivation, right? It exposes you to a number of different professions, lifestyles that you can aspire to enjoy in the future, to work towards. However, it's unrealistic, like I said. It's an exaggerated reality, unfortunately. But the funny thing is, actually, it's quite contradictory as well. You're aspiring to that lifestyle, but at the same time, you're enjoying watching these motivational videos, you're getting bouts of motivation. But the social media aspect in itself is making you lazy. And there's nothing more dangerous than a lazy, ambitious person.
I really like that. There is nothing more dangerous than a lazy, ambitious person. And that is true. And that goes back to the comment where you say, hard work beats talent, when talent isn't working hard. And that's what it comes down to. If you're ambitious and you have the skills and you believe you can achieve something, it's a shame if you don't achieve it because you were too busy wasting your time away. Now, Abid, before that, you also mentioned with regards to this false image being created on social media, perhaps as a result of filters or fillers or whatever surgical operations that women may use, or makeup or whatever it may be. Do you think that these videos and these social media influencers or proclaimed influencers are causing people or viewers, youngsters, to have poor body image of themselves?
Although it may not be intentional, but yes, 100%. Because once you're an influencer, you hold a burden of responsibility. Whatever you display on your social media accounts, there are youngsters watching you. They're deriving inspiration from you. Now, there might be a little girl who's scrolling through social media and sees such a beautiful woman, but that beautiful woman has not become beautiful through natural means, but she's, conducted many surgeries and applied a lot of filters. Now, when that young girl looks at herself in the mirror, she'll be devastated. Why don't I look like that? Why do I not look as beautiful as the woman I saw on social media as I was scrolling?
Definitely, and it is a sad reality that a lot of people feel that they are not enough because of these images that are available on social media. Now, another thing about social media I've always found interesting, and one of my biggest issues with social media, It's the fact that there is there's a ton of misinformation on there. And it's misleading and it's just completely false and it's made up. I can give you an example. Sometimes I'm scrolling through social media and, I find that allegedly one of my favorite Bollywood actors has passed away. And I saw that and I was devastated and I thought, I always loved watching his movies. And only when I did a Google search, I realized he's perfectly fit and fine. There's nothing wrong with him. And it's just social media is constantly publishing a ton of nonsense, which is just not true. And this causes a massive problem because people watch videos on social media and they just take it. They just believe it. I'll give you an example. There are a lot of scholars, proclaimed scholars on there, and they will post talks or videos, and some of the statements or claims that they are making are so far away from the reality of Islam that it's shocking. And you've got people there in the comment section just believing whatever is being said. I would always encourage youth especially who are seeking knowledge to always listen carefully to where that knowledge is coming from. Where is the information coming from? If there is a scholar telling you that this is a fact, where did that fact come from? Was it mentioned in the Quran? Is it a saying of the Prophet? Where did it come from? What is the source? And you should always do your independent investigation, especially if you hear something which doesn't quite add up. Because it's safe to say that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran itself, the statements and the stories, when you hear them or when you read them, they follow logic. They have a deeper meaning behind them. I'll give you an example. A very small hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that if there are three of you in a gathering, and say you and I, Abid, were having a conversation, and let's say Ahmed over there, made up Ahmed, was not privy to this conversation. He was not part of this conversation. Now we're conversing, we're communicating, we're having a laugh and a joke, and we're having a good time. But our brother there he's left out.
Yeah.
Our Nabi ﷺ said that when you're in a gathering like that, you shouldn't have a conversation where you accidentally or you exclude a third person. So what should you do? You should change the conversation to bring him in.
Definitely.
And that is a very simple hadith of the Prophet. But it follows a logic. You can understand why Rasulullah ﷺ said that. Because he doesn't want the person to feel left out. Or feel that perhaps these two have a better relationship, or they're not as close with me as, all sorts of thoughts and feelings and come across a person. But a hadith and the Quran will always follow logic. And if you apply common sense, you can figure out exactly the meaning behind it. So if you come across on social media a scholar who's stating a particular hadith or who's mentioning a particular fact and he says this is in the Quran, but it doesn't add up in your brain, you should always go out and independently search that. Where did it come from? Who said that? Is it even true? Because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and you've got to be careful. And just on that note, I wanted to ask you, Abid, how dangerous is social media for that particular reason?
Fake news has affected the results of elections in the past.
Yeah. It has indeed.
2016 was the year where fake news reached its peak on social media. Data companies were battling each other to receive data of social media users so that then they can project false personalized information to change their perspective of the party they were predicted to vote for. If the data company was working for a particular party that's participating in the election and sees that a social media user, a normal Facebook user, has a personality that does not align with the choice that they're going to make on election day, they will target false ads against the party that they're going to vote for. And that changes the perspective. As a result of that, apparently there's a conspiracy that it has affected the Brexit election and the US-American election. I won't take any names of what the company was, etc., but that was a result of fake news. And if fake news is that detrimental, even on a local level, think about how it could affect the youth. In fact, you mentioned Bollywood. There was a Bollywood actress who faked her death to bring light on the alleged cause of her death. It was a cancer issue that's not very spoken about, and she wanted to bring light to that. So she faked her death, saying that she died as a result of this particular cancer. When they went on Google, they found out she was perfectly fine. And now a lot of people had mixed feelings about why this publicity stunt was made and whether it should have been made in the first place. So fake news, and there are people who actually believe the fake news. Yeah, you see, back in the day, people used to read newspapers. Some people read the newspapers and took everything word for word without verifying how biased the newspaper company is. The impartiality laws, impartiality rules. We saw a very common example with Qatar. BBC didn't really portray Qatar in a positive light. And as a result of that, a lot of the Western media recipients, they viewed Qatar as a very negative, very oppressive country, right? But as a matter of fact, when the actual football viewers that came back from Qatar after watching football, they said that was probably one of the best World Cups they've ever had. So fake news is very detrimental, and people need to be informed, they need to be educated about how to verify information and fact check. Check various sources, don't just stick to one.
Definitely, and that's very important that you check many different sources to make sure your information is accurate. And false news and false information has been a problem for a very long time, and in politics especially, it's a tactic, isn't it? So once upon a time it was through newspapers, and then it was through mainstream media, and now it's through social media. It's not anything different. It's not anything that hasn't been around for a long time. Now, Abid, we're coming towards the last few minutes of our episode. So we spoke a lot about the problems of social media. We spoke a lot about the positives of social media. Now we want to spend a little bit of time focusing on some resolutions, some methodology that youngsters can adopt to better their situation. For example, if they're addicted to social media, what can they do to eradicate that addiction? If they are distracted by social media, what can they do to eradicate that distraction? If they find that they are on social media and they are watching women, what can they do to reduce that? What can they do to eliminate it? So, Abid, what is your view on that? What can youngsters do?
So as we've already examined throughout the episode, that social media is like a road without any speed limit, right? Very, very detrimental to the youth, to anyone using it who's highly addicted. But in terms of resolutions, if we're talking about children under the age of 18, right, they're not going to be as well informed about the harmful uses of social media. And that therefore becomes a responsibility of the parents. The parents have to supervise that. They need to establish a rule, a judgment over the child on their social media use. Sometimes parents literally just give away phones, social media platforms to children just to keep them quiet, unfortunately, without actually supervising what the child is watching. And if you see children, their minds are very sensitive.
Yes.
They're very malleable. In that period, their consciousness is being developed. And if they're exposed to a lot of negativity and toxicity, that will be cemented into their adult phase. And that could impact them for the rest of their life, possibly. So any age under the age of 18, I believe it should be parental guidance, parental supervision. But anyone older than that, I feel that institutions such as universities should make an official module, for example, to shed light on the social media topic, about the harmful uses, about how it can actually be used for their education in a positive way. And I think that's one of the main key guidelines. If we talk about government intervention, now the government will not try to suppress social media use, as it is a billion-dollar marketplace now. Now governments thrive based on social media usage for business. Economies run as a result of social media usage. But if the government was to impose a ban, I feel like there should be a government screen time remote control. Yeah. Like load shedding happens, right? They shut off the electricity of a stretch of a location. Same way, if they apply that to social media, we'll have far less people watching social media, finding other means of being productive. And you realize that humanity will be back on track to succeeding.
Definitely. And those are two very, very good suggestions. So if you're under 18, your parents ought to take more responsibility. And if you're over 18, then universities and the government itself should do something. And on that, what my view is that you yourself, especially if you're over 18, even if you're a teenager, you know, with a bit of common sense really, is you are responsible for what you are watching. You are responsible for what you're pumping into your brain, for what you're doing to your heart. If you are responsible enough to avoid watching particular videos or avoid spending too much time on social media, you're only doing yourself a favor. And especially these days, excessive use of social media, one of the main negative effects, especially these reels that have come around, TikTok, you get 10-second videos, you get 15-second videos, you're killing your brain. You're killing your attention span. You're getting yourself used to accumulating or gathering large bits of information or large bits of entertainment in a very small time frame. And what that does is it reduces your attention span. So when you are speaking to someone, you might zone out. If you're sitting in a meeting or in a lecture at university, or if you're sitting in a meeting at work, or you're in a press conference or wherever it may be, your brain is you're training your brain to only listen for a very small amount of time. And this is damaging your brain. So you really need to take responsibility of your own health. You need to reduce the amount you use social media, reduce it a little bit, the same way any addict does. And I call social media addicts social media junkies because essentially it's the same, any addiction is the same. You've got to slowly reduce your intake. Perhaps you spent 4 hours today on it. Tomorrow try and spend 3 hours and 40 minutes on it. Just reduce that 20 minutes. Maybe that 20 minutes focus on something else. At the same time, change what you're watching. If you're there for an hour and a half watching women dancing, you really ought to change that. You can change that to an hour and a half of an Islamic lecture. There are tons and tons out there. You've got very good scholars there giving very good bits of information, and you can spend your time watching that. You can increase your knowledge. Perhaps you can go there and you can look at what other people are doing in terms of marketing. Might spark a business idea for you. But in any case, you are responsible for what you see and you're responsible for your own health. So take care of yourselves. Now, Abid, unfortunately, we have come to the close of our program. So until next time, from me and Mr. Abid Rizvi, that's all. Abid, thank you very much for coming today. And thank you for your insights.
It's a pleasure.
Viewers, until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.